Hi and welcome to this Google Hangout. I'm absolutely delighted to have with me this morning Clare Thomas, who's Head of Family Law at Kerseys. So, hello Clare, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you very much for asking me to speak to you.
Oh, that's great. Well, despite the weather, it's raining, pouring down outside, but lovely and dry in here. And, we're going to just have a little conversation about what it is you do. Well, first of all, tell me how long you've worked at Kerseys.
I came to Kerseys in 2000, so 14 years now. Yeah,
14 years.
yeah.
And I remember you were mentioning that there was another person whose job you took over and she'd been there even longer. Isn't that right?
No, that's right. Mirandareckitt was a partner here and head of the department and worked at Kerseys for about 40 years or so before she retired. She had a great reputation and they were big shoes to fill for me. So, yeah, but I learned a
Wow.
lot from her.
Absolutely. And so,
Mm.
so what were you doing before you actually became a lawyer? What's your background?
I was a nurse. I trained when I left school as a nurse and worked for about 10 years in nursing, specialising in intensive care. And I was a
Right.
sister in a London teaching hospital for a lot of that time.
Okay.
But when we moved from London and I started a family, I decided to change and find something else to do.
Wow. Gosh.
Mm.
So had you any idea that it would be law that you'd get into? How
No,
did that
no,
work?
not really. I went along to the university and local to me, which was Essex University, and
Mhm.
looked at the options there. And I decided, possibly naively, that I could do law. And I thought maybe with my nursing background, it could be medical negligence or personal injury. So that's what I plumped for. Unfortunately, they offered me a place there as well.
Mm.
And so I undertook the law degree there as a mature student and graduated from
Mm.
Essex in
Mm.
1992.
So how many years did that take to graduate, then to get fully qualified?
Well, the degree course was 3 years, and then you do another year as a
Mhm.
legal called it's the legal practice course. So you're learning the practical aspects of being a solicitor, and then 2 years as a trainee solicitor with a firm. So working actually on the job and learning while you're working there.
So
Yes.
it's not a quick decision. You have to be prepared to put in those years to get to that level.
I think so. I say naive because I hadn't really thought about the 6 year slog, but nonetheless, it was worth it at the end of the day. So,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and
yeah,
great. So now you're head of family law,
yeah.
and what I would really like you to do is to try and explain to me what a family lawyer does, what kinds of things you do.
Um, it's quite varied. We advise and assist people who are divorcing. So we may help them with the divorce process and all that's associated with it, sorting out finances, whether there are issues regarding children, such as whom the child or children may live with, how much time they'll spend with the other parent. But it's not just divorce, it may be people who've been cohabiting for long periods of time. And again, the law there is different, and there are still issues to be resolved, such as dividing assets. And again, issues relating to children are very commonly uh, disputes where there's a lot of emotion. Emotions are running high,
Mm,
really.
mm,
We also advise people who are going to marry and will advise them and prepare prenuptial contracts. People who are going to cohabit, we can advise them and draft cohabitation agreements for them. We also deal with issues such as Inheritance Act claims, where you might have a spouse that has died and has not made provision for the survivor. And that may be the case whether or not they were married. And so sometimes you have to make a claim on behalf of your client against the estate because there isn't sufficient provision. So it is quite varied, and a lot of children work. We also deal with child care proceedings where a local authority is seeking to take children into care because their parents aren't providing the care that's required for them. So it is a varied area of law.
mm. And you have a few people in your team, don't you? It's not just yourself. Tell me who
No.
else works with you.
Yeah, no, it is a team, very much so. There's myself, Elaine Webb, who is very experienced. We all do the same basic areas of law, but have our own sort of areas of specialism, and Elaine's is children law and particularly child care. That is something that she's extremely good at and has a very good reputation for. Janet Rayburn, who's been with us for some years now and is really developing an expertise in the finances in divorce and separation as well, which is what I do in the main. And Vicky Mead has joined us recently. She's qualified about 6 months or so ago. She's working in all areas, and in time will work out what it is she wants to do and what she enjoys, and where she will specialise. But it is very much a team. We do support one another, covering hearings if one can't do it, looking after matters while people are away on holiday, and it really does mean that we can provide a good level of service to our clients, because that's really what, of course, we're here for. So, yeah.
And you mentioned that you support each other. I can imagine that it can be often quite emotional, some of the work you do. How do you deal with that?
Yes, I think it can be. And one of the things, if you're a family lawyer, you have to work out how to deal with that, because although you might empathise with your client and want to do the best for them, you have to remain objective, because if you don't, you're not going to give them the best advice, and the advice that they really need to be able to settle it. And at a very early stage they have to have a realistic view of how the matter is going to be resolved, because there's no point giving them advice which is maybe fits in with what they would hope would happen, rather than actually what the law will want to see in a divorce or separation. So yes, it is emotional. I think you just have to find ways of dealing with it. My nursing background, I think, helps me a lot. But I think it's just experience, really. As time goes by, you do get better at it.
So what's a typical day for you then? What kind of jobs and tasks do you do in a typical day, if there is such a thing as a typical day?
It does, again, vary a lot, because you may have a court hearing, so whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, so that's usually sort of half your day gone. You have to prepare for it, obviously, be at court, and a lot of time is waiting, because there are other cases as well. You're on the telephone a lot, talking to clients, talking to solicitors for the other party. A lot of drafting of documents, whether it be orders, deeds, etc. And a lot of letter writing, responding. Those letters may be putting proposals to settle, and part of all the sort of negotiation process. I'm trained as a collaborative lawyer, and whether or not it's a full collaborative case, we often will have round table meetings. So we will meet with the other party, their solicitor, and see if we can actually find a way of settling any issues without the need for full-blown disputes and court proceedings. And that is a lot of the way that we do try to guide our clients towards, is settling it, if at all possible, without the need for going to court. So it is a varied day.
Well, that sounds like a full day. I'm just trying to imagine your week is probably packed with days similar to that.
Yes.
Do you have to do ongoing training? What side? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, we're obliged to do so many hours of professional development a year, and that may be in varying ways, either just attending formal sort of training courses, reading and keeping up to date with the law, with the journals. We also have, as part of our training here, we get sort of webinars online that you can actually watch, and you watch with your colleagues, and then you discuss afterwards, issues that arise out of it. So it's just all in all trying to keep up to date. Some requirement for the training is more formal, and others, as I say, is just a lot of your own reading and working in your own time, and keeping up to date with all the changes which seem to be continual.
Oh
So
gosh,
yeah,
no, that keeps you on your toes then.
it does indeed. It does.
And have you noticed that over the last 14 years that things have changed? Are you doing different kinds of work? What's popular? What
Hmm.
not popular, but what's changed?
Um, yes, there have been a lot of changes. More recently, the changes in legal aid have made quite a difference in that although we do a lot of care work, which Elaine does mainly, is mainly legally aided. A lot of legal aid has now been taken away from family work. And so one of the things that you find is that people will act in person. So you might often find that you're dealing with what are called litigants in person on the other side. And that has its own challenges because, of course, they don't necessarily understand the process, don't understand the law. So you have to find ways of dealing with those litigants in person. A lot more prenuptial agreements, I think, they're becoming more common. And not just amongst people who've got, a lot of money. It doesn't have to be the super rich who use them now. It's people with more modest means, often people who are going into a second marriage, who may have children from their first marriage, and they want to ensure that in the event of the marriage breaking down, that they retain their own assets because they're desire mainly is just to ensure, of course, that their own children should benefit ultimately on their death, and they don't want to see their assets maybe going to their spouse if the marriage doesn't work out. So that is happening much more commonly now. And that's probably, I think those are probably the main changes that we're seeing.
And
Yeah.
and do you find that you are working outside of the region of Ipswich and Suffolk, or because I know you've got a branch in Colchester, or
We
do you?
do, yes. Yes, we do have a branch in Colchester. So yes, we are also in Essex as well. I actually live in Essex, and the branch in Colchester is very near where I live, so I will go there quite frequently. But also we have clients actually from all over the country. I have clients who I did have a client in Scotland. I've had clients, in the north of England, London as well. So because of the ease of communication now with obviously with email and that sort of thing, it's much easier to deal with people further away, and so it's quite common to have really quite a wide client base.
Well, actually, I'm just thinking about Google Hangouts. What an opportunity to
Yes,
work with your clients
yes,
in far-flung regions of the
yes.
country.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, because of course Skype makes life a lot easier as well. And so normally we would see our client initially for a first appointment, but after that, then it's usually dealing with them remotely. And it seems to work very well. That's fine. They're happy with it, and it means while they're sitting at their desk, they can be also answering our emails and dealing with their own work as well as, what they have to do in terms of the reason they're instructing us. So.
So you
Mm.
have a very busy life with work
Hmm.
and continual development, and
Yes.
I'm just wondering if there's any time for you to do anything else outside of work.
Yes, I do try to make that time because my children are now grown up and independent. So I'm very keen on tennis. I play a lot of tennis. I am a very keen gardener as well, and I spend a lot of time in my garden, particularly this summer, which has been so beautiful. And cycling is another thing I do as well, and walking the dog.
Mm.
So yes, I do find time, and I sail a little bit as well. So it's yes, it doesn't seem to be there's much time in the day for by the end of the day once you've fitted in everything. But
Sounds good.
yeah.
And so in your garden, are you growing vegetables or is it very much flowers to look at?
It's very much flowers at the moment. I think I'll save the vegetables for when I retire because I think they need a little bit more work and time. But no, it's very much flowers, lots of herbaceous borders and shrubs and things like that. So yeah,
And hasn't it been a gorgeous summer here?
it
So
has. Yeah. Mm.
excellent. So
Yeah.
Claire, I don't know, is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything that we haven't really covered um, before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. I think that where in family law, most family lawyers belong to an organisation called Resolution, which was the former Solicitors Family Law Association. And we are required by them as members to try and deal with matters in the least acrimonious way, to make, to find ways of settling without issuing proceedings where at all possible. And there are lots of different ways you can do that, either by mediation, where people can go and meet with a mediator who's a family lawyer who's also trained in mediation. They sit down and they discuss and try and reach agreement in that way, or through the collaborative process where you meet with your lawyer and the other party and their lawyer, and again try and reach agreement which is one that suits the parties, because really, of course, that's what we're there for. And just other ways that you might, whether it just be negotiation through solicitors, again in the most efficient and cost-effective way possible, because of course we are a service industry at the end of the day, and we in our department are also trying to find other ways of making ourselves more accessible to clients. We open on a Saturday morning, so one Saturday a month, and we open so that people who work all week and can't come to see us during the week, or maybe work away, can come and see us. And it's just really trying to find the best way of servicing and providing a service to our clients.
Well, that's great. And of course, if people want to get in touch with you, they can either contact kerseys.co.uk. You've got all your telephone numbers on your website, and the fact that you've got drop-ins on Saturday, very accessible. And I think, Claire, thank you so much for really helping me to understand the role of a family lawyer. I had no idea of all the the services that you can offer people, and you've really explained that in a very clear way. So thank you so very, very much for joining me this morning, and hopefully we'll meet again on another hangout soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.